From humble beginnings to the pinnacle of success, one man's journey proves that with determination, anything is possible. This is Catch as Catch Can with George Tinsley Sr., inspiring conversations of triumph over adversity. Here's George.
Good afternoon. Today we have with us the great Mack Calvin, a good friend of mine that we go way back. He's a basketball legend, five-time ABA All-Star, whose illustrious career spread both the ABA and the NBA, and as a record-setting point guard who led teams to unexpected playoff success. Mack's journey from player to coach demonstrates his deep understanding of the game at every level. Now a motivational speaker, a youth mentor, Mack inspires and empowers others with his message of seizing the moment through strategy, discipline, and energy. Mack, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, George. It's an honor to be with you, my friend.
I appreciate you taking the time. You're out there in sunny California. You could be out on the beach walking and having a Starbucks coffee, just enjoying life, but you taking the time to be with me, my friend. I tell you what, I brought along an old Floridian hat, from back in our ABA days where we first joined together as roommates during the early part of the season, preseason that is, and formed our long relationship back in 1971, somewhere in that neighborhood, man. So I appreciate the friendship. I appreciate you being on the program today.
Well, George, sports brings together great friends over a period of time, not just as teammates, but we develop our families. Families are very close. We've traveled together. We've gone through a lot with each other throughout our career and our life. And it's just an honor. You're closer to me than a brother. And I've been honored to be your friend, and I'm so pleased to see the great success that you have had after basketball, and also the great family you have with starting with the great wife Saritha and little George and Penny. So success, basketball helps build what you have today and the journey through life. Our journey is never ending. So I'm just very excited and proud to be with you.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So let's start off, Mack. Let's after that great introduction, which I appreciate, let's start when you first started playing basketball. Can you remember back what excited you, what got you motivated to play?
Well, George, my family moved from Fort Worth, Texas, when I was 10 years old to Los Angeles, and so we moved to Imperial Courts, which is the projects. And that's where the large recreation center, and I played baseball, basketball, football, ping pong, you name it, but just something to stay active. And then I was really a better baseball player than I was basketball. And so I played that. So Imperial Courts in Watts, they call it South Central today, but it was really Watts in the projects. And I had three great coaches, Coach Perez, Jack Perez, who went on to be the superintendent of Parks and Recreation for about 2 decades, and then I had Coach Williams, John Williams, and then I had another coach, Mr. Frank Henderson, and it actually was Frank Williams and Frank Henderson, and they really instilled in me, the value of playing together as a team. I had no clue what a basketball was or baseball or any of that when I moved from Texas. And I played every day. I played except Sunday. They were the recreation center was closed on Sunday. So that's how I really got started and started playing basketball as a group, as a team, and started playing baseball as a team. And that's how I started getting involved. And from there, my family moved to Long Beach and I was very fortunate to move to Long Beach, go to Long Beach Poly High School. And it just went to another level. Where my team was 77-1. So it really started when I was 10 years old in Watts.
77-1 in high school?
Yes, Long Beach Poly.
Wow.
Two CF championships. And the reason we lost that one game is two of our starters, my junior year, they were late to catch the bus to go to the game, and Bill Mulligan, the famous Bill Mulligan, Hall of Fame college, high school coach, he left those two guys, Trent Gaines and Billy Richards, and I got the chance to play a lot more of that game because I was a sixth man, came off the bench, but we lost that game by 1 point. Eventually, we played them later on in the year in the playoffs. We beat them something like 20, 25 points.
So let me be clear. In your senior year, you were a sixth man?
Oh, in my junior year, I was a sixth man.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 11th grade.
Senior year, you were definitely starting.
Well, my senior year, I was first team All-CIF, one of the top 10 players in Southern California.
Okay.
Our team was undefeated, and I really blossomed, but I didn't have the grades to go on, George. I was reading at the 7th grade level, and I had a 1.9 grade point average. So obviously, all the coaches backed off. But that was part of my journey starting then.
So Mack, tell me about that. That is probably, I know you've faced a number of different obstacles, like I did in growing up and moving on. Sports was an opportunity to develop self-esteem and to get out of the circumstances you were in. Facing those difficulties, did that cause you to pour more into the game?
Well, George, I had to play because I was telling my family. My dad was an alcoholic and a lot of verbal and physical abuse in my family. So I stayed away from the house so I wouldn't have to encounter all that. And that's where I developed a stuttering problem. And that's why I missed a lot of class. And so that really, I just stayed and played ball. After school, I would go to the park and recreation and play ball until 10 o'clock at night. And obviously I didn't study. In high school, I never know where the library was. So I never did that. And so in English class and other classes, philosophy, I would have to read and I would stutter. I would read a sentence, and so the kids would laugh at me. And so I obviously stopped going to that class because they would laugh at me. And so they put me in special ed, wood shop, metal shop, and all those classes. So I never really matriculated from an educational standpoint. It wasn't that I was dumb,
right?
Because you can't be dumb, and play basketball and be a point guard. You got to know all the plays and the options of that plays. And so it was just a fear and lack of preparation. And, I didn't know a sentence from a period. And, I never took the major core classes that would take you on to college. I never took algebra, the trig and Spanish and the core classes that you needed. So I was just so far behind until I had to go to junior college, and that's another conversation.
Right. So, and that's what we want to move on to. So you go to junior college, and you start to develop there, and then you move on to USC. Take me through that.
Well, Georgia, as I said, I had about 100 scholarship offers, letters out of Long Beach Poly because we were the number one team in the state. I don't know where we were in the country. They didn't rate you then, just only in the state. And so all the schools passed on me once they got my transcript. And so I had to go to community college, which was Long Beach City College. And there I had two great coaches. One was Bill Barnes, who became my mentor. He was an assistant coach. He was the dean of that school. And also Chuck Kane, who was my mentor, my head coach, who was in my wedding, was at my first game. He's the one, he was 6'5", didn't look like me. And he's the one that really turned my life around. He, basically said to me, Calvin, if you miss any more classes, you're off the team. He called me in his office, and I missed probably half of my classes the first 2 weeks. I would just stay in the corridor. And he called me in his office, and, for the first time in my life, I was checked. People, they made me accountable. And so they changed my whole course classes and all that, just really changed my life. And then we had 2 great years. I Was the second leading scorer both times at Long Beach City College in '66 and '67. We only lost 5 games those 2 years, but we never could win the finals against the great Jerry Tarkanian, who was a junior college coach. But I was able to get the grades. I was able to get all the core classes and the units that was transferable. And at the end of the day, I had about 50 scholarship offers my sophomore year at Long Beach City College, and I chose USC over UCLA. And as you well know, during that era, UCLA was winning everything, and I would have sat on the bench my first year behind a great All-American guard named Mike Warren, and I just didn't want that. And I started at USC. I lost more games the first month at USC than I lost in the 4 years at Long Beach City College and my high school. And so, but had a great time at USC. Graduated on time. We lost 1 year, my senior year, 2 games, and that was both games to UCLA. And in those days, as you well know, you couldn't get out of the conference if you didn't win the conference.
Right.
Yeah.
And UCLA had the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar during that time.
Yeah, who was name was Lou Alcindor, and they had the Lucius Allen, and they had about 4 or 5 players that at my senior year went on and played professional ball. Mike Warren didn't, because he became a great actor in Hill Street Blues and other movies. But I grew up, those 2 years at Long Beach City College, George, and I tell you, I really learned a lot about discipline, because I remember we were undefeated for about first 18 games, and we had a Friday night, we had a Saturday game. So after practice on Friday, our coach, Chuck Kane, said, I want everybody home by 9 o'clock. And so we can, the discipline part. And one of my good friends, Mel Reed, who was one of our star players, who was injured at the time, and he was being recruited by the University of Oregon. And he had a couple tickets to Oregon USC game, and he asked me if I wanted to come. And it was an early game, 6 o'clock game that Friday. And I figured I would be back home by 8 o'clock. We had to play. It was about a 25-minute drive to the sports arena. And long story short, that game went 3 overtimes. And I did not get home until about 9:20. And when I ran into the house, I asked my mother, Coach Kane called, check up on him, and she said no, and I was safe, But long story short, George, the next day we played. We had to go to Bakersfield, play. We were the number 1 team in the country, junior college. And we played a game, and I did not play. I was a starter, averaging 18 points a game. I did not play that game. I didn't play the first half. I didn't play the second half. And we lost by a couple points. All the teammates was wondering why I didn't play, and I was wondering why I didn't play. So the next day in practice, which was on a Sunday, we're practicing. I don't practice. We finished practice, 2-hour practice, and everybody shoots the free throws, run out of the gym. I was running out of the gym, and Coach Kane called me back, and he said all the players locked the doors, and he said to me, Dad, you're going to learn discipline in life. You've never been accounted for. And he shut the doors, and the assistant coach, Bill Barnes, he said, you're either going to quit or you're going to learn a lesson. And George, it was the defining moment in my life, and that's what carried me over to the 12 years of professional ball and 7 years coaching NBA and college coach, high school coach. He had me running with the medicine ball over my head for 45 minutes.
Wow.
Running suicides. You know what suicides are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, from baseline free throw. 45 minutes, George. And he said, only way you can go in if you can make it to the baseline, the end of the line before I blow the whistle. And every time I would get close to that line, man, for 44 minutes, he would blow that whistle, and I got so tired, I was diving. And finally, after about 45 minutes, he said, okay. He told the assistant coach to go open the door and let the players. They had to literally drag me out, George, and I really wanted to quit. I really, and so that's the person you're talking to now, who learned those early lessons. And now what I do with my camp and kids, I share that story, and basketball was all I had. But it taught me the discipline of life. That one day, and I was never late to practice, never late to catch the bus as a player, coach, administrator. I learned from that particular day. And I'll say this real quickly. Chuck Kane passed away, and I got a chance to see him a day before he passed, 2 days before he passed away. He was at home, he was on morphine, and I just asked him one question that I have wanted to ask for over 30 years. How did he know I had went to the game?
Yeah.
He was watching the game on TV, and then one of his best friends was the head coach, who told him that I was at the game, and the game obviously was over at 9:30, and there was no way I was going to get home on time. But that one moment was a defining moment of my career.
Yeah. Well, Mack, and I think that it'll hold true with a lot of us. At some point in life, you go through tough times where you learn that if you don't follow the rules, the discipline that has been laid out there, that you'll lose it.
Right.
In my case, as a freshman in college, my grade point average had dropped down to 1.6, 1.7, and I became ineligible, but was able to make it up during the summer, so I didn't lose my eligibility going into the next year. But it scared me so much that from that point on, I was attending all my classes, doing all the work, and did everything I could to make sure, one, I didn't lose my position on the team, lose my scholarship, but as well that it was just my pride, self-pride, that didn't want to let the coach down, didn't want to let my teammates down. So I think we all go through something like that. It's good to hear your story, because I'm sure that some young person out there listening to you today will glean from that and understand that when these coaches and teachers are really putting down the law, if you will, in their particular sphere, that they gotta do it, or else it just won't work. So I was glad to hear that. So Mack,
but George, as you share that with me, and I didn't know that story, because I always thought you were a great student and never had any issues and problems, But again, this is the finished product of who you and I are. But there is defining points in our life, whether it be early or midpoint, that will change us. But what it has done is embrace who you are and who I am. That's carried over in our marriage, in our families, you obviously in your business, that now you've instilled into your son, little George, that you've carried throughout your life. And everyone has those opportunities, but it goes by some rebel, some people rebel, and to be a great ball player, which you were, high school and college and the pros, you had to have that discipline. And the great players today that are successful, that discipline in there, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the discipline, work ethics, perseverance, mental toughness, what you have, and where you are today, and you're still sharing that, man, that's a blessing.
Right. Well, thank you, Mack. I want to go back to your USC years as you end your senior year. And I think, if I remember correctly, this is when you all actually beat UCLA. Is that correct? Okay.
That's my last game, yes.
Your last game. So that you went on to the tournament?
No, George, there was no tournament.
Okay.
If you didn't win your tournament, if you didn't win your conference, you could not go on, even to the NIT.
Okay.
And so we broke their 58 game home winning streak, and we beat them 46-44 on the last second shot by a guy named Ernie Powell. And we played a stall game. You know, in those days you didn't have a clock. So we ran 4 corners on them, and then we would take open shots, and our purpose is try to draw to bring Lou Alcindor, Kareem out. And then I would drive, you know. And so we played them back to back, George. That was a Saturday game. We beat them, but Friday we went in double overtime and almost beat them. It was Lynn Shackelford made a jump shot at the buzzer to beat them. So we almost beat them. And you know, the great John Wooden, who was the coach there, he, you know, very disciplinarian, a Christian guy, and in the paper after a win on Saturday, he made a statement because we stalled the whole game. You know, he said stalls are for horses. That's a great quote, man.
Yeah. So you graduate from USC and you get drafted in the NBA and the ABA. And tell me about that whole experience and how you wound up into the pros.
Well, George, you know, I was fortunate enough to be one of the top players in the Pac-8 at that time. Now it's the Pac-12. I was invited to play in the Honolulu. I don't know if you remember that. They had a Honolulu All-Star tournament where they invited the 10 best players from the West, the South, East, and North. And so I went and played, and guys who were first-round draft pick, I competed against them, and I made the all-tournament team. And so that's where I got my exposure.
Okay.
And that's what really opened the eyes of the scouts. And so I was drafted on the 14th round by the Los Angeles Lakers. And they only drafted me because I was a local product. And Pete Newell was the general manager who knew my coach very well, you know. And then I was drafted on the 7th round by the Los Angeles Stars. Here again, I had God's favor because Bill Sharman, who was a great Laker coach, as well as the former Boston Celtics great Hall of Fame player, he was the coach. But they offered me $2,500 signing bonus and a $12,000 a year contract. And the Lakers offered me a free trip to tryout and a free signed Jerry West T-shirt.
Which
that's good
was
as true.
Down the street, right? Yeah.
Yeah, at Loyola. Yeah, we practiced at Loyola. But yeah, they didn't offer me any money, signing bonus. And that $2,500 bonus, you know, my wife at the time, Gail, we were able to get an apartment. I bought me a little Volkswagen, and man, I thought I was in seventh heaven. I still had about $1,500 in my pocket.
So you signed with Los Angeles Stars, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And who was on that team, and tell me about how that progressed.
Well, they had the great Willie Wise,
right,
one of the great two-way players, and you know, they're certainly in the ABA and NBA. And we had old timers that came from the NBA like Wayne Hightower and Warren Davis. We had a great shooter who you probably played against, George Stone.
Yes, from Kentucky.
From Marshall. Yeah, from Marshall, played at Kentucky. Yeah. And then we had the great Merv Jackson, an All-American out of Utah. He was a first-team rookie year before I got there. We had Larry Miller, who was a big guard at 6'5", was an All-American first team at North Carolina. And George Lehman, who was a guard who had played in the ABA for a couple of years. George, I had seven guards ahead of me that had guaranteed contracts. And again, as I said, they drafted me because I was a local guy, and also the general manager, Jim Hardy, was a great quarterback played for the Rams, LA Rams. And so they drafted me, but all those guys, you know, had guaranteed contract, and really was going to be tough for me to make it. But every day I came, I competed twice a day, and Sharman's theory was play one-on-one, show at the end of practice, and I beat every guy that I went against. But George, I had a fear. I didn't stick around after practice was over. Man, I ran out of the gym because, if you stuck around, you stayed around. I always thought that Bill Sharman, he was always cutting players after practice. And so I ran out of the gym, man, in my little Volkswagen. I didn't want to be cut. So even the last day of camp, I had played so well, I still didn't know if I made it. I went home, and we had to leave the next day to go to Carolina to play a couple exhibition games. I went home. The trainer, Buddy Taylor, had to call me and tell me to come pick up his uniform. My uniform, I made the team. So that was the fear that I had.
That's a great story. Well, Mack, I remember you as a rookie. You were 1 year behind me, and I remember when you all would come to Kentucky to play. Our guards at that time were Darrell Carrier and Louis Dampier, two of the highest scoring guards in the league and on offense, but neither one were great defensive players. And in the locker room, as we're in the pregame, they were in there battling over who's going to check Mack Calvin, because they were both scared to death of checking Mack. Because Mack, you had one of the quickest first steps, and could pull up in on a dime and pop that medium range jumper or take it right on in during those first several years. I think you may have, as the season went on, was one of the leading scorers as a point guard. Who played point guard? Who played with you at guard that year? Your rookie?
Well, Merv Jackson, another guy named Andy Anderson.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you had become the focus of the offense, and those guys were shaking in the boot. And who was going to check you? So.
Yeah, well, they were great players, George. Not giving enough credit. Louis Dapper was a great shooter, and and same with Darrell Carrier, but they couldn't guard their luggage at the airport, Yeah,
but both great friends. Both great friends, and we tease about that today. But they were definitely had some fear. But you had a great year. So how did you break into the starting lineup and progress during your rookie year?
Well, George, again, I wasn't highly thought of, but I had a great coach, Bill Sharman, who played with the great Bob Cousy.
Right.
And he was about speed and quickness. And that's what I brought to that team, speed and quickness. He wanted to play fast. But, George, when I was telling I was afraid of being cut, and we left to play a 2-game exhibition game in North Carolina. I never forget it. It was Boone's, North Carolina, and Appalachian, and I that first game, George, I didn't play in the exhibition game, and I played so well, and Willie Wise played, but he never played me that game, and it was just Carolina Cougars, and then we played back-to-back nights, and so the second game, with about 3 minutes left in the first half, he called me, and I jumped up and almost ran on the floor with my uniform, with my sweats on and everything, and George, I scored 13 points in that 3-minute span that I played before halftime. And then after halftime, he started me. Long story short, I scored 34 points in that game in less than 24 minutes, and it was over then, George.
Yeah.
It was over. And I'll go back. I remember calling my ex-wife, Gail, and I said, after the first game, I didn't play. I said, well, I'll be cut. I'll see you in a couple of days. I'll be cut. I'm going to be cut. I didn't get played. We had about 18 guys on the roster, doing training camp. But after that second game, George, it was over. My career took over. And George, we won 23 out of 25 games remaining to make the playoffs. And we beat New Orleans Buccaneers out by 1 game. And during that stretch, I averaged about 26 points a game. And then once we hit the playoffs, we played against the Denver Rockets at the time. They're now the Denver Nuggets. They had the great Spencer Haywood, who was Rookie of the Year, Player of the Year, had the best team. We beat them 4 out of 6 games to advance to the next round where we played the Dallas Men. And during that playoff run, I averaged about 25, 26 points a game during that first round. And then the next round, we played against the Dallas Mavericks, and they had a great team: Ron Bull, Ceci Powell, Matty Lynx, and John Beasley, Charles Beasley. And I averaged 32 points a game. And one game I had 45 points and 16 assists. And I don't think there's never been a rookie to score 45 points and have 16 assists in one game. And long story short, we beat Dallas Chaparrals in a 6-game series to advance to the ABA championship against the Indiana Pacers, the great Roger Brown, and they beat us 4-2 in the playoff series. But I averaged about 28 points a game during that whole run. So that's really what propelled me. And then of course that's when I met the great George Chesley the next year. What happened? The Miami Floridians were the general manager was Dennis Murphy, who was a big USC fan, and he wanted me. And it was a team that was struggling, and he traded Donnie Freeman and a couple other players for me to come down there, and I went down there and I was second leading scorer in the league at 27 points a game, able to take them to the playoffs for the first time, and that's made first team All Pro. I was an All-Star player, and we didn't win. We won about 38, 40 games, more than they've ever won. And that's kind of where I had all really started, where I got my name. And then I think it was the second year. That's where you and I roomed together as doing training camp. And so those early years. And unfortunate thing with teams that I played with, Miami and Carolina, they all folded. We had great teams. I loved the city. They all folded, and I had to go into a dispersal draft from Miami to Carolina, and Carolina folded, and I went from Carolina to the Denver Nuggets. So I never stayed in one place, any city, no more than 2 years.
Yeah. So Mack, going back as you were going through your career, and I think you made all rookie in your rookie year, right?
I did. I was second leading vote getter behind Spencer Haywood. He was overwhelming choice.
Yes. So you move around from team to team, and you just got married, and I think in your first year there in Miami is when your first child was born, or your only child.
Christy,
was born.
Yeah.
And so how did the moving around in those early years affect the family? How did you all handle that, you and Gail?
Well, George, after the second move from Carolina, I always kept the moving company's phone number, so, and the general manager, so they knew what to do. But, after that first move from Los Angeles to Miami, which is really, it was troubling at the beginning because I had such a start and a great promising year, but that team, LA Stars, moved to Utah. That became the Utah Stars. And obviously they won the ABA championship that next year. So that was a disappointing fact as a team for me. But as an individual, it really propelled and took off. My career took off. But it was tough moving. We were leaving Los Angeles, where I had played high school, college ball, where my families were able to go to the games. Gail, parents was there. It was familiar territory. And so going to Florida was a tough move. And obviously my second year, we had Christy. And it was great. And George, I went from $12,000 a year to $60,000 a year. $60,000. I signed a 2-year contract, with the Miami Floridians for $60,000. I went from $12,000 a year with LA Stars to $60,000, and then in mid-season when I was leading scorer, they tore my contract up and gave me a $75,000 contract and then 90,000. So I don't know percentage wise what that increase is, but
I'd say it's pretty
was
significant.
yeah, 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 and and then of course I became recognized as a great player, and it had its good and bad. So moving is not easy. You've moved a couple times, and as a player, it's not easy for you and the family, and then you got to get to know new teammates.
Yeah. Mack, and I look back to the Floridian days where we became good friends, roamed together, and so forth. One of the things that I learned in Kentucky, well, let me back up. Going back to coming out of college, I was drafted by the Oakland Oaks, and after I signed my contract, I had a $25,000 annual contract with a $10,000 signing bonus. So I started off at that particular point. But they moved to Washington. They went to Washington. 5 games into Washington, I get traded, or Kentucky buys my contract. So I'm excited because I'm going back home there. And so the team was pretty solid. We didn't have to worry about our checks and so forth. But I remember when I was with Miami, one of the first things that Ira Harge, who was one of our teammates, said, he called me Scooby. He said, Scooby, as soon as you get that check, go straight to the bank and cash it and make sure it doesn't bounce. And I remember following his instructions and I got there, all the players, there's a bunch of teammates, they're all lined up cashing a check. So that was the first sign that Miami was in a little shaky position anyway, as financials are concerned. So looks like when they gave you all that money, it really put them over the top.
Yeah, but George, I can share a lot of stories, but we were very fortunate because I think mid-season, a guy by the name of Ned Doyle bought the team, and he was an advertising magnate from New York, and so we didn't have any problems after that from the previous owners. Yeah, I can tell you a lot of stories about paychecks bouncing and guys going to the bank with guns to make sure they got paid. But that was one of the problems, as you well know, in the ABA. But George, I remember you, and it's amazing here, 50 plus years later. I remember you and we had practice the next day. There was 2 a day, and man, you and I would stay up talking to 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Well, we had very interesting backgrounds, and we were talking about different things. And I was mulling over at that particular point getting married, and you were already married, and so it was all a very enlightening kind of experience for me to kind of see how things were evolving. And then, of course, I got married. That's right after the season. Lo and behold, I get a letter that says the team has folded, and my contract has been sold to New York.
Wow.
So those ABA days were pretty interesting. So, Mack, your career in the ABA, it was just outstanding. I personally think Hall of Fame career in the ABA and the NBA from the both playing in both leagues. You go from playing to coaching, and on the other side, tell me about your early coaching career.
Yeah, and, just George, let me go back a second. I had 6 great years. My rookie year, and as you alluded to earlier in the opening, I was a 5-time All-Star, 3 times first team. That means you're one of the top 5 players in the league. And once I was second team, and I always led our team to, the finals. Carolina Cougars. My year with the Denver Nuggets when Carolina folded, we were 65-19, and I was Basketball Weekly Player of the Year. And that was the year David Thompson won the NC2A championship, and the Denver Nuggets. His relationship with Carl Shear, they brought David Thompson in the 75-76 season. And so and that's that year they traded me to the Virginia Squires, and then I got hurt. I only played 45 games that year I got traded, but I went from making $95,000 with the Denver Nuggets to making $175,000 with Virginia Squires. That was monopoly money because our checks bounced as well. But I wanted to say I got injured. I tore my quadricep tendon, and I was never really. I was a shell of myself for the remaining 5.5 years that I played ball. So I never really, once the merger came, really had that speed, quickness, and but once the league folded, the Lakers had my rights, and I went and signed with the Los Angeles Lakers, which was a mistake. But I think that I was one of the top 5 guards, the top guard in the ABA, voted by a panel. And so I never really got my just. And I think that, if I'm going to get in the Hall of Fame, which I will, and obviously your support, it would have to go off of my ABA success, because I only averaged about 9-10 points a game in the NBA once the merger, but I averaged 19, almost 20 points a game, and so that's where it is, and it's going to happen. I believe that 2025 will be the year that I get in, but there was a lot of great players like myself that didn't really got injured before right after the merger, and never was himself. Ron Boone, James Silas, and a guy like Willie Wise. And so when the Hall of Fame, Naismith did away with the ABA committee, I think it left a lot of players like myself out, and hopefully that will come to fruition over the next couple of years.
Yeah, Mack, I have total confidence. I think that's going to happen. Obviously, you and I both know there's some politics that enter into it, and as time goes on, people tend to forget, but about your success. But I think that you'll get there, given all that you've done for the league, both as a player, as a coach, and after coaching, where you still make a contribution back to the league. And speaking of that, tell me about that career on the National Basketball Retired Players Association, when you got involved there, and also your help in establishing the pension fund, if you will, for ABA guys that played over 3 years but did not actually play in the NBA for any length of period, where it helped those guys out who had a tough time.
Well, George, thank you for that. But I want to go back. Once I do they get that call, get accepted, you'll be the next call. I want you to be by Gail Christie and my side, and come on stage with me, because you've been an integral part of my career and my life, and I value and look up to you. So you will be there, and I pray that we can stay healthy and that can happen.
Thank you.
But you also were on the board of directors, and you helped change the face of the NBA Retired Players Association with some of the instruments that you brought, accountability to the Retired Players Association. But I was on that one term. I think it was 3 years. I think you were on twice, and you were president at one point. But you brought a lot to it. So what really transpired with the pension now, it really started back in 2014, where there were 5 or 6 guys that the NBA, they were tooting their own horn. They had the best lawyers, got money. Fatty Taylor and Jimmy Jones, a couple other guys. The NBA quietly gave those guys money and said, don't tell the rest of the ABA players. And so I found out, and we hired a lawyer out of Chicago, and that group is the one that really started. We filed a class action suit against the NBA for ERISA. And you've been in business, you know what that is. That's for taxes and pension monies, players not being paid. So we won a class action suit, and we had 3 buckets, 3 tiers of where we wanted to get our money. One, the class action suit, and one is the guys that didn't get any money in. And I did not receive any money because I was going through a personal marital situation, so I never received my pension money, and so I ended up getting one of the largest funds, a settlement. So we won the class action suit. Some guys got money, And then there were probably 30 of us that never got the pension monies, and I was one of them. But then there was also another bucket where when we merged, the NBA said that all players that had pension money will be the year's service in the NBA and ABA would count as one. That didn't transpire. And so they put that in bucket 3, in which they hired another group later on that really went after and got the guys' monies that are getting out. There's about 105 players that are getting a large check at the first of the year of every year that did not play any more than did not play 3 years or did not get a pension from the NBA. Anyone that played less than 3 years, they got pension monies. And there was a cutoff, too, that you had to play at least 3 years in the ABA to get pension monies. And there are guys that only played 1 or 2 years. And my belief and philosophy, my theory is that all players should be accounted for, whether you played only 1 year or 2 years. Everyone should get those monies. So that's what I'm fighting for now. But we won that class action suit in 2016, and over 200 players got monies. And now last year, the NBA recognized, and that's how they call it, not a pension, recognition of the ABA. And so some of the players are averaging about $40,000 a year that they're getting receiving on the 1st of January of every year. That's a significant amount of money, personally, when you get guys that are in their 70s and 80s and just relying off their pension. But George, you know as well as I did, and you have fight for a lot of causes and things that, you know, we had a lot of guys, and you've had a lot of great friends that passed away that were really just destitute, and so didn't even have burial monies. And so you know, Sam Smith, one of your ex-teammates, I think, and friend, and quite a few more. So the NBA just signed a $76 billion, I think, 5-year contract with the media, the network, the TV station. And I think some of that a portion of that should go in perpetuity to whether it's 40, 50,000 a year to former players. Even if those players were relevant, great players like Artis Gilmore, Ralph Simpson, myself, you, others should receive. I don't care if you're a multi-millionaire or whatever, that you're entitled to that. And so that's what I'm going to fight for, continue to fight for, and speak out on. And with your support, you know, because you know, I get calls all the time with guys that they're in trouble, you know. And so thank you for bringing that topic up, because it's an area that I'm passionate about. Not that I'm a multimillionaire doing what God has, you know, sustained me and blessed me, but we have to take care of those who help build the face of the NBA today.
Right, Mack, you've done a lot for the guys. A lot of the guys that are playing today don't realize the shoulders that they're standing on as they go through these big major contracts today. When you compare it to what you made and what I made back in the back in the day, it's really unbelievable to see the numbers that some of these guys are getting. But because of guys like yourself, things are changing and doors are opening for individuals. Mack, I want you to talk about your faith, because knowing you the way I do, I know that that's a big part of your life, your faith, and also your family. Tell us a little bit about this last few minutes that we have here.
Well, George, I was baptized at 5 years old, you know, in Fort Worth, Texas. And, you know, I was just, you know, that was instilled in me at a young age from my grandparents, you know. And, you know, I haven't always hit the mark, but I've always in my heart had a belief of a higher power. And so that's who I am today. I share that. I don't boast or read scriptures, but I try to allow that light to shine in me daily, where people can see a positive reflection of you know, of God in me. And I share that with the young people, because George, I Good friend, I have on October 8th, 1995, I came to the crossroads of making a decision. When I was young, my dad introduced me to playing the horses, and and I did that as a young kid, go to a racetrack with my dad, and when I retired, and so that was a daily thing. And I also, my wife had a lot of health problems. I was always running, so I used to always go to the racetrack. And so come in a week, October 8th, this year, I will have 29 years of not going to the racetrack. And I had to find out that what I was a compulsive gambler. I didn't play any cards or casino or gambling anywhere like that. All I did was play the horses, and that's all I looked toward to. That's where I ran and skate. And so it'd be 29 years next 2 weeks. And so a higher power, God took me, I realized on that last day, October 8th, as I walked out of the racetrack in Hollywood Park here in Los Angeles, I really heard the voice of God say, "Can you hear me now?" And I had tried to quit and stop for many years. And so I couldn't, going through meetings. And, now I'm a mentor. I go to meetings. I have sponsorship. And so that's when my faith really became very strong, because I could not coach or play ball anymore. Couldn't get a job coaching. And so I turned to my Christianity, to my faith. And it's what sustained me on a daily basis, and I try to share that. And you and I have the same values, because, you've had to have that spirituality, that faith foundation to sustain what you've gone through. And so it's what gets us through, George. And so, again, I don't quote scriptures or boast, but I just try to live a life and give back what God wants me to do. But I did have you want to call it an addiction. People think it's easy. You can play lottery, and I can't play a $2 lottery. I can't go to the racetrack. And so I've been blessed. And so that's where my faith is, George. And I don't have a problem sharing that, because there are points in all of our lives where we have to look at ourselves, but it is a higher power in our faith and our trust in God that embraces us and gets us through.
Tell me about that beautiful daughter of yours.
Christy, oh man, Christy is amazing. She is smart. She is really, she went back a couple years ago, got a master's, and she's still trying to find that level where she wants to be, whether PR, back in the NBA as a PR director, but she will. And, we're very supportive, Gail and I, my ex-wife and I, for her, and it's going to happen for her. And she helps me with my foundation. She does puts all the grant papers together and applications that we need. We just completed our 47th year of my basketball camp, and we average a little over 100 kids a camp. We run 3 a year. And so she's been awesome. You know her, you're just like your daughter. She's been very supportive of her career as well. So I'm very blessed, George, like as well as you're very blessed to have your little George, your son, into your business. And George, you are a miracle. Everybody knows your story. Your book, by the way, is fantastic. You're sharing your message, and I think that's the faith you have, and that's what God wants you to do. Because I remember earlier days when you didn't make it. You want to be an FBI agent, became a teacher. You didn't think I forgot that. You FBI, watching over presidents and councilmen and mayors. That'd have been
Mack,
your duty.
We do what we do to find our way after that career of basketball that, what we aspire to be, but it doesn't always work out. You got to have a fallback position and stay positive and give a shot at different things. I knew that FBI agent wasn't exactly what I wanted to be, but it was an opportunity for financial growth. And fortunately, KFC came along with an opportunity with Walt Simon out there at KFC that sparked my career to get into corporate business arena, and that just took off from there. So it's having faith, trusting in God, and knowing that if you stick with it, that something's going to turn out good. So
Yeah, George, before we get off, so you have 2 or 3 principles that has been your success?
But Mac, my thing has always been the challenges that are before you. That if you work hard to overcome them, believing that you can, believing in yourself, surrounding yourself with positive people who are along the same line of thought process of success has always been my motto to stay close. Also, listen more than talking, and understanding the good things that you can pick up from other people, other surroundings, other experiences that will help you move to the next level. So that's been my kind of basis motto in turning obstacles to opportunities. And when I decided to write the book itself about my life and what I've gone through over the years, it just kind of all fell together, and showing to anybody that is out there, if you believe in yourself and you want to be successful, you're willing to work hard, you're willing to get up and go at it. You know you're going to not always be successful, that you'll make it. So that's kind of been my motto.
Yeah, and you got a beautiful foundation, a good team behind you, Saritha and George, and had Penny while she was here, and I think those are all important as well.
Right. Yeah. So correct. Well, Mac, I have enjoyed being with you, my friend. We talk at least once a month, all the time. But I found out more about you today in sitting and listening to your story, and I'm sure that everybody that's tuned in will certainly pull something out of that story. They'll realize how great Mack Calvin was, and a future Hall of Famer, and so I hope that all the success in the world comes along, my friend.
Thank you, George. I value your friendship and love you, brother. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep inspiring and keep lifting people up.
Thank you, sir.
This has been Catch as Catch Can. Your success story is waiting to be written. What will you catch today? Go to tinsley.speaks.com for exclusive content, resources, and opportunities. Catch as Catch Can with George Tinsley Sr. is a production of Advantage Media.